It was March 29th, 1976, a cold winter night, when a French-Canadian teen girl stepped out for a short walk to meet up with her boyfriend and friends at a nearby pizza parlor in urban Montreal. The girl met with a tragic, brutal incident and went missing for 3 entire days. The community panicked, and the girl's family and police frantically searched. Finally, Sharron's lifeless body was found. The shocking discovery changed the lives of Sharron's close-knit family forever. Yvonne went to file a missing person report with the local police. And so, unfortunately, in a very misguided attempt to calm Yvonne, who was, of course, a typical panicked mother, an officer, he posed the possibility vocally that Sharron ran away from home, which he assured her happened all the time. And so I can just picture it now. Yvonne immediately was so angry and upset and frustrated, because if you have to stop and backtrack and explain your daughter's personality to police so they don't go tromping down the wrong path while they're looking for her, she probably gave up hope. But no, she didn't. She actually just said that she knew her child much better than he did, and that Sharron would never ever pull such a thoughtless, ridiculous stunt. And so, besides, Sharron left her money at home. And guys, I know that this might sound weird, but I believe at the time, women were not allowed to have bank accounts in Quebec. And so that would probably be why Sharron's money would not be in a bank, but at home. So I'm not sure about the situation, but anyway, Yvonne knew that Sharron's money was not with her. It was at the house. And so that actually proved to the police officer that it was a very unlikely theory that Sharron would have set out on her own late on a Saturday night without a cent to run away. She had nothing to run away from. She was very happy and very well adjusted. And no, it couldn't be, right? Welcome to my channel. Of Sharron Pryor was a very high-profile child murder that occurred in Pointe St. Charles neighborhood of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Hi everyone. Today we are going to review a very old vintage cold case that was only recently solved through genetic DNA technology. And the advancement of this particular field is also responsible for solving a couple of other cold cases, one of them which I have reviewed several years back when I first began this channel. And so we're going to be talking about that in our next review. But for today, I'm going to be sticking with the cold case, the recently labeled cold case of Sharron Pryor. Sharron Pryor was a very pretty popular 16-year-old high school girl who was unfortunately abducted after she left home to meet up with friends at a nearby pizzeria on March the 29th, 1975. So this is a very old case. And on the 1st of April, 1975, she had been missing. She had gone missing for a few days. But on the 1st of April, her body was finally found in a vacant lot in the nearby city of Longueuil, Quebec. And unfortunately and tragically, Sharron had been attacked in the most vile and vicious way, and she had been struck many times, and she was suffocated. Sharron Kim Pryor was born on February the 9th, 1959, to Yvonne Pryor, and she also had two younger twin sisters, Doreen and Maureen, and a brother. And so the brother was the youngest. And it was a nice, normal, happy, and stable family unit. And both sisters said that Sharron, when they tried to go back and remember her, they remembered Sharron as a very kind and warm-hearted, and she dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. And so, guys, you know, younger siblings can often be a pain, can't they? And so that's not always so typical of what younger siblings will say of an older brother or sister. However, these twins, Doreen and Maureen, they adored Sharron and they looked up to her. She was a wonderful role model for them as well. Now, as for Sharron's dad, he had been around. He was actually almost always absent in the military. And so eventually, Sharron's mom and dad did split up, very unfortunately. But this separation did not really weaken their family's structure. They, you know, on the contrary, they became even more fortified as a steady and stable family unit. And so, yeah, that is the Pryor family in a nutshell. Around 7 p.m. on the evening of March 29th, 1975, 16-year-old Sharron Pryor set out for a 5-minute walk to her favorite neighborhood pizza shop in the Montreal suburb of Longueuil, Wellington Street, Pointe St. Charles of Quebec. So 5 minutes, guys. She had been out for 5 minutes, and she actually hadn't even made it to the pizzeria. And it was such a short distance. But this short distance luckily narrowed it down for detectives who later tried to retrace her steps. Unfortunately, it took the better part of 50 years to actually find out exactly what happened to young Sharron. Now, guys, I'm trying to go back in time, and I know that I believe that Sharron and I would probably be around the same age, and if she had lived, I think that we would have been able to come up with very similar memories of what the styles were like, what our favorite shows would have been, and what were the top hits and things like that. I remember in 1975, the trendiest movie that I can recall was American Graffiti. And it was so trendy to dress up like, the 50s style and try to imitate the old diners of the 1950s. It was a fad. It was something that I was myself so obsessed with. And I know that so many of the fashions were dictated by what the actors and actresses wore in that movie. March the 29th, 1975, this happened to be a carefree Saturday night, and Sharron's curfew had always been extended to 1 a.m. on the weekends, and I'm assuming that this would have probably been restricted maybe to Saturday night. I'm not sure about Friday night, and most definitely probably not Sunday night. Sharron stuck to this curfew religiously, and she was very responsible about this curfew. And of course, her younger sisters and her young brother also looked up to her because of her responsible attitude in the family home. And so she never would have gone against her mother's wishes, and she always obeyed that curfew. And it just so happened that her boyfriend, John McAleer, was very understanding about that rule as well. So they made a great, awesome couple. And so that night, she dressed up in jeans, a sweater, and a jacket. And I know that it gets cold in Quebec in March, so I'm assuming this would have been a winter jacket. And so she had already made plans to meet up with her boyfriend and other school chums as well. And so Sharron was, she set out for the short walk to the pizzeria. And it just so happened, guys, that she was never seen again by anybody, by her friends, by her family, by her boyfriend. Nobody saw her. Her friends did hang around the pizzeria, and they realized that it was absolutely not, it was out of character for her to not show up or let them know if she had been held up. And they waited for her to come walking through the door. They waited and waited. And, but, actually, those were not the days of cell phones. So they had no actual way of knowing that she had, in fact, become quite brutally victimized by a heartless, cold predator. And so, I will be talking a great length about this predator a little later on, but just bear that in mind. And this predator, I'll just tell you this right now, it took 50 years for people to put the pieces of the puzzle together, but he was well known to police, even as Sharron walked down that street. And so, just, to give you an idea of where this story is headed. And so, Actually, several hours passed that evening, and yeah, you guessed it. Sharron, of course, missed her curfew. She failed to return home at the agreed time, and her mother, Yvonne, phoned several other friends, later on after the pizzeria closed down, and she was hoping, against hope, that Sharron just might have been with one of them, depending on whatever might have happened. And however, unfortunately, she could not catch up with with anybody who knew what happened to Sharron. During these phone calls, that Yvonne actually had the first bit of the scare of her life. And, you know, Yvonne learned that Sharron never actually made it to the pizza parlor that night. And so immediately, Yvonne knew that this was totally out of character for Sharron, who was actually quite responsible for her age. And she knew that something had to be definitely wrong, because Sharron just would not have done this. And I understand that logic. When you know a person well enough to know that something has to be so out of character that there has to be something wrong somewhere, it can terrify you. And indeed, Yvonne immediately filed a police report, and she did so with her heart in her throat, terrorized that something indeed might have happened to Sharron. And I imagine that she might have probably thought, well, maybe Sharron was run over by a car or a bus and she might be in a hospital. Well, those are terrible tragedies, but what actually happened to Sharron was much worse than that. And she was no longer walking the earth. Yvonne went to file a missing person report with the local police. And so, unfortunately, in a very misguided attempt to calm Yvonne, who was, of course, a typical panicked mother, an officer, he posed a possibility vocally that Sharron ran away from home, which he assured her happened all the time. And so I can just picture it now. Yvonne immediately was so angry and upset and frustrated, because if you have to stop and backtrack and explain your daughter's personality to police so they don't go tromping down the wrong path while they're looking for her, she probably gave up hope. But no, she didn't. She actually just said that she knew her child much better than he did, and that Sharron would never ever pull such a thoughtless, ridiculous stunt. And so, besides, Sharron left her money at home. And guys, I know that this might sound weird, but I believe at the time, women were not allowed to have bank accounts in Quebec. And so that would probably be why Sharron's money would not be in a bank, but at home. So I'm not sure about the situation, but anyway, Yvonne knew that Sharron's money was not with her. It was at the house. And so that actually proved to the police officer that it was a very unlikely theory that Sharron would have set out on her own late on a Saturday night without a cent to run away. She had nothing to run away from. She was very happy and very well adjusted. And no, it couldn't be, right? And so the officer told Yvonne that he realized that he had made an error in judgment and that they would do everything in their power to locate her missing daughter. Thank goodness for that. Yvonne was left with nothing else to do but return home so that she could stay by the phone in case her daughter Sharron could call. However, Yvonne waited for 3 days, and needless to say, Sharron never did call. Sharron was a bright, well-adjusted, vivacious, and healthy young girl. She did all the normal things most teens did back in the 70s, like shopping at the mall, participating in sports, and doing her best to excel in her studies at school. Had she lived through these present times, Sharron would be doing the same things our own teens do today. Her friends were so precious to her. In her day, friends were very focused on one another and less on gadgets, as we are today. Close friendships were often very deep and intense. Pass, and we now have some evidence and a discovery. Sharron's body was indeed found in Longueuil in a wooded area across the St. Lawrence River, and the evidence left at the scene was a man's t-shirt which had been used to restrain Sharron, and he also left tire tracks that were found at the crime scene. And so I guess because there were no other tire tracks there, and there was evidence of a man who left his t-shirt there, they knew that those two pieces of evidence were related to the same perpetrator. That indeed was a terrible blow to the Pryor family, and I can just imagine her younger siblings and her mother and her father, who all pulled together during that time in between when Sharron left the house to go to the pizza parlor and when her body was finally found, I can only imagine what, grief and terror they went through. And so, okay, now on to the autopsy and Cheryl Roy's witness testimony and the investigation. Multiple autopsies revealed that Sharron had indeed been physically attacked, and it was savage, guys. And she was suffocated. It is about as cruel the attack as that of the young girls, Donna and Wendy, whose case I reviewed last year. It's been over a year. Who also lost their lives in a similar crime, but they had been also shot. And so Donna and Wendy were about the same age as Sharron. And so DNA was extracted from Sharron's sweater. However, it was minuscule. It was such an insufficient amount to be tested that, and in those days, the DNA technology development was very, very raw. It was only in the first initial stages. And so nobody could go anywhere with that little tiny bit of evidence. However, that DNA was kept sealed over the decades in hopes that it could someday be used to find a perfect match. Now, guys, in many cases, such minuscule amounts of DNA can either go missing or just disintegrate. They're lucky. Everybody involved in the case is lucky that it was sealed away properly and preserved. And so, we're going to talk about that a little more next time. And so, at the same time of Sharron's disappearance, guys, here's a story within a story. And it seems that there was a 23-year-old woman, older than Sharron, of course, who reported to the police that very evening that a tall, white, English-speaking man with blue eyes, brown hair, and a mustache attempted to kidnap her at knife point. Well, guess what, guys? Cheryl was walking down the same street where Sharron happened along just a few minutes later. And the thing is about Cheryl is that she was a little older, probably a little more streetwise, and she was a young mother as well. And she fought tooth and nail to get away from this man. And, there was an immediate suspicion after Sharron was found to be missing hours later. There was an immediate suspicion by police that it was indeed the same perpetrator. It just had to be, guys. Nothing else really makes sense. It had to be the same perpetrator. This is so tragic because 23-year-old Cheryl Roy was walking very close to the pizzeria when a scraggly-looking man appeared from out of nowhere. He was probably hiding behind a bunch of rubble or something, and he was brandishing a knife. And so, why I say that this is incredible is that Cheryl Roy, when he grabbed her by the arm and he tried to lead her away, she resisted. And as he tightened his grip, he spat out threats, and he also used vulgarity, and he threatened her. And so, I can only imagine what Cheryl was going through at that moment. Cheryl later told the police that he spoke English in a predominantly French-speaking area. And so she remembered him, of course, not only for the language that he spoke, but for what he said to her. And she instantly pegged him as a transplant. I don't know what that means, actually. I guess the article wasn't clear enough. She pegged him as maybe an immigrant of some sort, rather than a native, local French Canadian. So there you go. And she would prove, as we will find out in the next episode, to be quite accurate about that. She was terrified. Cheryl knew instinctively that she would not be able to survive an encounter with this vicious, vile man. And, she couldn't allow him to drag her away to another location. She fought like a wildcat. And she caused the assailant to release his hold on her. And at that moment, she scattered inside a nearby shop and told owners that a man was after her. And by the time the police arrived, her attacker had actually escaped into darkness and probably into the grasp of young Sharron. Now, if you think about how this actually went down, she didn't go into the pizza parlor for assistance. Instead, she went to another shop, which was probably next door to the pizza parlor. Had she gone into the pizza parlor for assistance, Sharon's friends would have remembered the encounter, would have probably been alarmed, and probably would have come out, and maybe Sharon's life might have been saved. Who knows? I'm just speculating here. But in any case, the tragedy of Sharron did go down. So guys, Sharon's murder remained an unsolved mystery for 48 years. And it became a legendary, very high profile, unsolved cold case. During those 48 years, Sharon's family, specifically Yvonne, her mother Yvonne, never ever stopped hoping, waiting, or looking for answers over all the decades that went by. And I can really empathize with that. I don't know how many of you out there have ever lost a loved one who's gone missing or was taken savagely like this, and how many hours you might have agonized over trying to find that person and try to make sure that they were safe and okay. And of course, in this case, that could never have been. And so, yeah, what a tragedy. This part of the murder of Sharron Pryor and all the events that went along with it to a close. Next time, we will discuss a little more about the case, and we'll also touch on genetic genealogy and how it combines DNA testing with other traditional methods. And so, yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit next time. And so, and the last part of this actual series that goes with this case will be focused on juvenile delinquency, which will pertain to the assailant in this particular case. So thank you so much for listening and watching. On the evening of March 29th, 1976, hours after Sharron failed to arrive at the pizza parlor to meet her friends, those waiting for her did not immediately realize that tragedy had crossed her path. Sharon's mother began calling her friends to see if anyone knew what had happened to Sharon. The police were assured that Sharon was not a runaway. A search began within hours of her disappearance, and on the third day of the search, Sharon's body was found. The tragic incident rocked the entire community.